For a long time, the education system operated on a simple, isolating belief: to teach children with special needs, keep them away from everyone else. Look at these early classrooms. They were built for one specific type of learner, with rigid expectations that left zero room for variation. Students were sorted entirely by what they couldn't do. Under this disability view, kids were assigned labels and placed into isolated boxes. By keeping these students apart, actively denied them the chance to interact with their peers and develop the social skills required to navigate a diverse community. This model resulted in education for some, permanently sidelining anyone who didn't fit the standard mold. Society recognized the harm of that isolation, leading to integration. The idea was to take these students and physically move them into mainstream rooms. This push was driven by broader human rights movements that demanded equal educational access across the board. Global organizations formalized these mandates, but instead of true reform, governments often treated integration as a cost-effective compliance measure. The tension here is obvious. Administrators moved the child, but they left the rigid structure of the school completely intact. Students with specific needs were simply dropped into traditional classrooms, where one teacher was expected to manage up to 45 kids at once. A single static teaching style was applied to the entire room, which predictably failed anyone who learned differently. The physical barriers were removed, but the instructional and attitudinal walls remained. Students had proximity to their peers, but they lacked actual participation. That failure brings us to the core philosophy of inclusive education. Instead of forcing the student to adapt to the school, the burden shifts entirely to the school to adapt to the student. To execute this, educators rely on a framework called Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. UDL assumes diverse needs exist in every classroom. It designs the curriculum from the ground up to be accessible, anticipating needs before a student walks through the door. This means breaking down physical barriers by offering alternative presentations of the material, like audio recordings or tactile formats such as Braille. Teachers use two flexible tools to do this: accommodations, which change how learning is done, and modifications, which adjust what is expected to be learned based on a student's level. By building multiple entry points into the lessons, UDL shifts us away from seeing the student as the problem, ensuring the system itself is no longer the barrier. But a flexible curriculum isn't enough on its own. Managing a diverse classroom requires abandoning the traditional solo lecturer model. This table outlines co-teaching, where general and special educators share responsibility. Parallel teaching splits the class in half. Both teachers cover the same material, reducing the student-to-teacher ratio. In alternative teaching, teachers offer two different approaches to presenting the exact same information. Beyond the teachers, the students themselves become a layer of support. In pure mediated instruction, students act as tutors for each other, working in pairs to master the material. These instructional overhauls completely change the dynamic of the room. The diversity of the classroom goes from being a logistical burden to a massive educational asset. The most revealing aspect of the inclusive model is that designing for those in the margins inherently works better for everyone. Flexible teaching styles and varied presentations engage all types of learners, including students from different linguistic backgrounds and those with different ways of processing information. Inclusion remains an active effort to find and dismantle new barriers as they appear. By moving towards systemic inclusion, we stop categorizing children by their deficits. Instead, we build a system where social acceptance and academic achievement are available to every learner.